In the realm of nature, nothing quite captures the awe-inspiring force of lightning. Even in our modern-day age, with all our wonders and technologies, witnessing a lightning strike and hearing its thunderous sound can't help but leave us with a sense of awe and respect for the power of the natural world. Among the Cherokee, a special kind of respect was paid to lightning. The burnt wood from trees struck by lightning was sought after by shamans. The wood would be buried in soil to ensure a healthy crop, and warriors were rubbed with the charred wood for strength, effectively being charged with bolts of sacred fire. To the Cherokee and other groups, lightning was a dramatic display from the spiritual realm and served as a reminder of the spiritual forces that pervade the natural world and influence human life. Interestingly, the branching pattern observed in lightning strikes is mirrored across various natural phenomena in our world, with one of the most recognizable patterns being the network of branches in trees. This striking similarity stems from a shared principle of growth and movement. Both the electric charge of lightning and the tree limb navigate from a point of lower potential to one of higher potential, albeit in opposite directions. Lightning moves from a high potential charge to a lower one, while a tree limb grows toward a zone with low potential, in this case a shaded area, towards a zone of greater potential or sunlight exposure. This observation highlights a universal pattern of progression, each decision branching out like the limbs of a tree or the forks of a lightning bolt. Perhaps this progression is archetypal, instilled by the Logos as a concept, which is why it is so prevalent. When perceived from a broader perspective, our lives too unfold in a similar branching pattern, marked by choices and diverging paths that closely resembles the intricate patterns seen in trees and lightning. The realm we inhabit is full of metaphors, pointing towards higher concepts. Matter is, as the author Walter Russell wrote, merely the record of ideas and not the ideas themselves. Material objects are the shadow of a greater concept, which is more nebulous and abstract. The idea reigns supreme, yet its manifestation is physical form. For instance, before we create anything in the physical, it begins first as an idea in the imagination. Within the imagination, the concept is still nebulous, and it has the opportunity to take many forms. It is not yet concrete and real, it is still in potential. Once the concept is acted upon and work is done to bring it into form, then suddenly it has a real-world impact. It becomes real, yet at the same time, it's not real. It's only the shadow of the concept itself. This brings up an interesting question. Which is superior, the idea or the form based on the idea? Some would suggest that the point of art, for instance, is to convey concepts. Observing a masterpiece allows us to converse with concepts of a higher order, transcending the physicality of the art piece itself. It matters not what medium the art takes. What matters is the concept that is being conveyed. This dynamic interplay between the ethereal and the tangible showcases how higher ideas manifest and how these manifestations in turn draw us closer to the divine. As the author and occultist David Goddard writes in his book Tree of Sapphires, by the penetrative observations of the microcosm, you receive intimations of the macrocosm. Perhaps no spiritual tradition encapsulates this concept more distinctly than Qabalah. Qabalah is a form of Jewish mysticism aimed at understanding the nature of God and the universe. It offers a framework for comprehending the relationships between the divine, the cosmos, and humanity through a system of 10 spheres, or sephiroth, and 22 paths that represent different aspects and levels of consciousness and reality. The system is visually represented by the Tree of Life, which serves as a map illustrating how the Infinite One, or Ein Sof, interacts with the finite world. Its emanations are called sephiroth, which are attributes or aspects of the Infinite One. Holistically, the Tree of Life can be viewed as a process through which the Infinite One differentiates itself into physical reality, metaphorically representing the transition from 0 to 1. It also represents the path back towards unity, from the lower to the higher. As David Goddard writes, it is the lightning flash from Kether at the top of the tree down to Malkuth that shows the path of involation, or the one life power descending plane by plane, veiling itself in denser vibratory states. The sequence of the lightning flash from Malkuth ascending to Kether is the way of evolution, termed the path of the return. It is a path of the return that we will be discussing in this video series on Qabalah. Qabalah is infinitely complex, and to go over every single detail of the system would be far too much to cover. So what follows is an overview of the system itself and the spears on the tree, beginning with the spear which represents our reality, Malkuth. The tree of life is a visual metaphor for how the one differentiates itself into many. One way to study the tree of life is to see it as a system of triangles made up of various interconnected paths. These paths are described as activating, formative, and balancing. The author Robert Wang, in his book The Kabbalistic Tarot, writes, each of the key triangles in the tree refers to one part of the soul. The supernal triangle is the supreme spiritual self, the ethical triangle is the higher self, and the astral triangle is the personality in incarnation. In addition, he writes, the core structure of each part of the self is composed of three aspects: an activating force, a formative force, and an energy which is balancing. Therefore, each spear works with the other to form the whole. The only exception is a final spear, or Malkuth. Malkuth contains all three aspects and includes a fourth, Earth. In Hebrew, this is known as Yod He Ve He, or also known as the Tetragrammaton, or the unpronounceable name of God. Malkuth is a solidified end result of the actions of the Yod, the activating force of fire, He, the formative force of water, and Ve, the balancing force of air. You might also liken these forces to the Hegelian dialectic of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. The forces can also be thought of as states of consciousness. The tree of life is also divided into three pillars. The Sephiroth on the left pillar are considered active forces, and the Sephiroth on the right side of the pillar are considered formative or passive forces. Within the middle are the equilibrating forces, considered consciousness itself by Kabbalists. To visualize this better, think of music played from a guitar. The string is the formative or passive force. The tension and vibration of the string is the active force. Yet without the balancing force of the musician, no music could be created. You would just have noise. We should recognize that there is no true beginning and no true end. When one looks at the tree, both the bottom, or Malkuth, and the top, Kether, are both the beginning and the end. Beyond the tree contains the Ein Sof, which is God prior to any self-manifestation, existing in no thing, or what Ra calls intelligent infinity. Therefore, as the light moves further from Kether, it gradually gets stepped down into lower and lower vibrations, filtered through the activating, formative, and balancing forces of each triangle. Malkuth is the densest realm in the tree, the final destination of the light from the One. It is what we would call the physical universe, or the world of form. In the book The Mystical Qabalah, the author and mystic Diane Fortune writes this about Malkuth. It is the formative, concreting function of Malkuth, which finally renders tangible and definite what was, upon the higher planes, intangible and indefinite. And this is its great service to manifestation and its characteristic power. Within Malkuth, the tangible is precise, and the abstract takes a back seat. Forms here acquire a defined outline, in contrast to the superior spheres, where the form is more fluid and undefined. Malkuth is the grounding point of the divine's will, where the idea finally becomes manifest. However, the process of grounding this energy requires the use of channels and links. which, according to Diane Fortune, is the major problem of Malkuth. She writes, "The whole problem of Malkuth is a problem of channels and connecting links. The rest of the work is done by the mind on the subtler planes. The real difficulty lies in the transition from the subtle to the dense, for the subtle is so ill-equipped to work on the dense. This transition is effected by means of the magnetism of living things, whether organic or inorganic. The physical, being a denser realm, can be difficult to break through without the appropriate channels and magnetism of beings and objects existing in this realm. Being immersed in matter, it can be easy to think that we are cut off from the divine, and while it can be difficult to hear at times, the subtle calling of spirit is always transmitting information. As we work on clearing the rocks and thorns that block the heart, it becomes easier to hear the call of spirit and to form that connection to the higher realms. The more we form the connection and listen to the higher callings of spirit, the greater impact spirit can have in Malkuth. The conduit for this connection is, of course, you. All of us have the potential to be channels for the divine. In fact, as wanderers, this is perhaps the main reason for incarnating on this planet. To act as the grounding point for the divine, this is the natural role of humanity, to be the embodiment of spirit in the physical realm of Malkuth. This is the act of being a co-creator of the Logos. Recall that each Logos is responsible for setting up the archetypal framework of a particular system. Everything materializing in Malkuth is a direct offspring of these archetypal blueprints. Take, for example, the form of a galaxy. Our galaxy adopts a spiral configuration which one can see throughout the physical universe. This shape happens to resonate deeply with narrative structures, notably the hero's journey, a seemingly universal storytelling structure that is found in almost all myths told across cultures and time. It can be argued that the reason the storytelling structure is so universal is because it is archetypal. That is, it is not learned, but rather inherent in all of us, accessible by those sensitive enough to perceive within the deep mind. The narrative arc of the hero's journey unfolds as follows. The protagonist starts with a certain limitation, be it a belief system or another type of restraint. Eventually, the call to adventure beckons, leading them to accept this quest. This journey propels them through trials and tribulations, adversity and shadowy depths, facilitating their growth and leading to the acquisition of vital wisdom. After triumphing over these challenges, the hero returns, ready to embark on a new cycle, equipped with newfound insights. This narrative framework underscores the principle of continual growth. To evolve spiritually, one must journey beyond the familiar, confront their inner darkness, and from this confrontation arise reborn. However, like in real life, the process is never-ending. If one were to conceptualize this structure visually, it would mirror the form of a spiral. Since the spiral shape is so ubiquitous, and if we understand that the divine imprints higher concepts into the physical, then it appears that this archetypal story structure could be a universal pattern, at least in our Logos. This raises an interesting thought. Galaxies with alternative formations might operate under distinct archetypal systems, a reflection of the endless variety and complexity inherent in the cosmos. Perhaps a hint as to what those archetypal frameworks could be is found in the shape of their galaxies. How often have we heard of individuals being suddenly struck by a bolt of creative genius? Numerous tales abound of artists, scientists, writers, and the like who have given birth to magnificent creations, only to profess that the origin of their unique ideas felt as though they were not entirely of their own making, but were, in essence, channeled from an external source. This phenomenon suggests a connection to a higher reservoir of knowledge and inspiration, indicating that profound concepts are omnipresent, awaiting discovery and expression in our world. This is part of our role here in Malkuth, to be conduits, grounding points for higher concepts, to be the builders, where we can, of the archetypal frameworks thought up by the Logos. This is true co-creation. To be aligned with the divine, with nature, allows one to receive, thus enabling them to move beyond the limitations imposed by Malkuth. Malkuth is the first step on a journey back to the Ein Sof, back to no thing. It is an essential step in our journey. As Diane Fortune writes, the Qabalah teaches that the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and unless we learned the lessons of Malkuth, there can be no lasting progress beyond. The fact is that our first spiritual lessons come from those around us, and if we cannot function effectively on the material level, learning from the day-to-day patterns which we have chosen for our incarnation, it is unlikely that we will be able to function effectively on a more refined spiritual plane. The ability to sense the importance of the ordinary is a special form of discrimination. The seemingly mundane provides within it the most profound spiritual lessons. The more you work on yourself, the more you can see. By doing so, you make it possible to become a living bridge, moving from the illusionary state of separateness to one of active participant in creation.